It's time for a wrestling Q&A, ladies and gentlemen. I tell you, my last name might as well be Sokoa because I'm going solo this Monday. Get involved with your questions nice and early. But someone that's not solo is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. He has joined the Bloodline, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, this has come after all the controversy that's happened with The Rock's return, Cody stepping aside, The Rock having the challenge for Roman at WrestleMania 40, all for the We Want Cody movement that was going on, the Woe movement, if you will. And of course, this then changed things with the WrestleMania press conference, Cody making the challenge then, saying he will take on Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And in the process, The Rock being upset when the family was mentioned, of course, of the Bloodline, saying you talk about Roman's family, you talk about mine. We see the slap heard across the world, or certainly across the press conference, nonetheless, in Vegas. And at this point onwards, well, we've seen Cody. He's got his match at WrestleMania with Roman Reigns. The Rock, in the meantime, as he's not facing Roman, seems to have sided with Roman coming out of that press conference, and of course now has joined the Bloodline. Of course, it was confirmed this week on SmackDown as well. But of course, has he actually joined the Bloodline? Look, I'm a bit late to the party in discussing this, but for those that have seen previous videos on this channel, will be fully aware that I have discussed this before, that I kind of felt that this was a bit of a work. I can be wrong by saying it. A lot of sources have said that plans have changed. This wasn't the original direction. However, you look when The Rock whispered in Cody's ear, I always felt that there was something behind that. We never got to find out quite what was said. The fact that we've seen, obviously, the lines that everyone has probably gone on to mention since with this promo with The Rock, obviously with the Bloodline, pointing at Roman Reigns when it says, you are going to lose at WrestleMania. Of course, talking about Cody, but pointing at Roman. Of course, then when doing the salute of the Bloodline, not doing it properly, doing an L shape instead of a just a point. And let's be fair, The Rock, he doesn't play, he may play subtle, but he doesn't play stupid. He knows that we're going to be talking about it. He knows that we are all going to see what could be going down. And of course, if there is going to be a moment where The Rock is pretty much on the side with Cody all along, or the fact he's going to turn on Roman Reigns, what better place to do it than, I guess, at WrestleMania? Because The Rock, of course, he has discussed the Daytona 500, I believe it is, this past weekend, and said he will be competing at WrestleMania 40. Very excited for what the fans are going to be getting. It looks like that we are going to be getting potentially a tag team match then, the way that things are being teased at the moment. Certainly wouldn't be surprised with that as well. Of course, looking at what we've got with Elimination Chamber, Cody Rhodes and Seth freaking Rollins will be a part of the Grayson Waller effect on that show. Neither are competing at this particular moment. Of course, Seth has been carrying an injury, so we could be getting The Rock versus and Roman Reigns versus Cody and Seth potentially for night one of WrestleMania, leaving then for Cody versus Roman being night two, which means, of course, Cody and Roman will be doing double duty. Of course, you can play, as I said, poetically in previous videos, Cody could have an injury from night one carrying into night two, just to give that a little bit of adversity a bit further. The fact he could overcome Roman Reigns and finally finish the story. Would the breakup be if the fact that Roman and The Rock didn't win that tag team match, that The Rock could potentially cost or just give a rock bottom to Roman then? Or does it happen in the main event match with Cody? I've said previously, I do believe that if we're going to have a finish to Roman Reigns' title reign, it needs to be definitive. It shouldn't have outside shenanigans. You need to put the person over strong and clean. However, at the same time, it does call for a rematch, doesn't it? It does call for, say, Cody versus Roman at SummerSlam, for example, and then we can see Cody actually win clean, and that time it wasn't a fluke. You got an excuse to do the rematch, and of course, from that point onwards, The Rock kind of gets what he wants, really, doesn't he? If he does turn on Roman Reigns, and this is all a ruse the whole time, because, well, The Rock, if he wants the match with Roman Reigns, once Cody's out the picture and finished the story, I don't think as many people are going to be complaining about it anymore, whether the match happens in Saudi Arabia, whether it happens at, I mentioned SummerSlam for a Cody rematch, but still it could be the same there, or it could even be a case that's actually done for WrestleMania 41. Of course, that's then going into the Netflix era of WWE, which, let's be fair, I'm pretty sure will be quite cha-ching and will be a good excuse for The Rock to get back in the ring during that period. So I personally would not be surprised if The Rock is, let's say, jokingly joining the Bloodline at this point. Look, the two-man power trap seems really cool with The Rock and Roman together, and of course, it can play as a nice storyline, but I don't buy it for a second that it's going to be anything long-term. WrestleMania is the breaking point for me, and I think that that's where it'll go down. I personally would prefer to see it happen in the tag team match if it's going to happen for night one's main event. However, if it was to go down through the main event where Cody actually finishes the story, I guess all's well that ends well, and it could be a salute almost for The Rock nodding to Cody that he is the guy going forward as well. Which, let's be fair, I think still get a lot of people talking. If The Rock is involved in the main event of WrestleMania, despite what hardcore fans may feel about the situation with Dwayne The Rock Johnson right now, he does bring more eyeballs to the product, so that would be nothing but a benefit to Cody Rhodes. This is an open forum, and this is a Q&A. I've given my opinions there on that nice and early with The Rock and the Bloodline. Will you turn on Roman Reigns? Give your thoughts in the comments below if you want to talk about that in this video. Of course, if you want to talk about anything else wrestling related, could be WWE, could be AEW. We've got Revolution coming up. Of course, Elimination Chamber is this Saturday. Predictions will be on the channel live tomorrow. NXT will be joining me along with Kicking It with Leo. There'll be a triple threat in the house doing that stream for you. And of course, as well, TNA as well, a lot going on in that direction as well. But let's go into the chat in the meantime. Big shout out to Pierre, who's in the house. He was first here. Thank you, Pierre, for joining us. Bobby, also in the house. Bobby, hope you're doing well. And of course, Pierre here in with the first question of the night for us now. It says, I have a question for everyone that's watching the Women's Last Chance Battle Royal on Raw tonight. If you smell what Jade Cargill's cooking, well, to be fair, Jade could be the one. I think there could be a good shout there, Pierre, mainly because we saw on SmackDown Nick Aldis was very keen to get the contract sorted with Bron Breakker and Jade Cargill. And like you say, attention to detail. Bron signed his contract. Jade didn't sign hers. So with this Battle Royal taking place on Monday, if SmackDown stars are not eligible, this is a way for Jade to then be saying, you can sign up for Monday Night Raw, win this Battle Royal, and you're in the chamber. My only problem with this is what happens if Jade does not win the chamber. It doesn't really give the strongest start to Jade Cargill coming into a Royal Rumble, not winning, going into the chamber, not winning. If Jade Cargill goes in the chamber, she needs to win, in my opinion. But spoiler alert, if she's in the chamber, she's not my prediction. I think the prediction, is a pretty obvious one for the women's elimination chamber match. If I was going to get my way, as I'm just going to say, if I'm going to get my way, I'd like Indy Hartwell to shock the world and win the Battle Royal this evening. Of course, she's Australian, just to get in the chamber. I know she's not going to win, but I just think it'd be a cool moment to actually perform in front of a home country. And I'd like to see Bronson Reed get given a match between now and Saturday. I think that's something that would just round off the card nicely, because again, it'd just be good for him to appear on that show. Grayson Waller, the Grayson Waller Effect. Rhea Ripley, I'm sure, is headlining the show against Nia Jax. Looking forward to the predictions tomorrow. Eric with a great question here. Do you feel it's now or never for Cody to win the title? It's a really deep question. It's a really good question, Eric. I really like you've put this one in here, because in a way, it could have been tomorrow if Cody wasn't competing for the title at WrestleMania. The second he won the Royal Rumble, it became more now, especially now they've done everything where if the plans were meant to be Rock versus Roman, they've switched it back to Cody versus Roman. Fans have made it where it has to be now, because if Cody doesn't get the job done, I don't think fans are going to accept it. The only way you can get around this is if the fact is we mentioned about a Cody versus Roman rematch or some sort of SummerSlam, if Cody won the title, is to find a way to screw Cody one more time. So this is The Rock still with the Bloodline at this point. You can do Cody versus The Rock in Saudi Arabia, and then you can find a way to actually perhaps maybe do Cody versus Roman either at SummerSlam or just afterwards, and Roman's meant to have broken these other records where he becomes only behind Bruno Sammartino as the longest reigning champion ever, because I think at that point you definitely have to end it, because fans are getting very impatient, like we can see now. It almost feels like it has to be now, because if Cody doesn't win it, I'm not sure, because there is that risk. If Cody doesn't get the job done, there is a moment where fans may start giving up on Cody, and I don't think you want to do it, because we've seen our favorites throughout the years where they've been given opportunities, given championship runs, or not championship runs, but championship shots, not getting the job done. By the time they've lost 2 or 3 of them, you start thinking this person's never going to do it. And I think we've seen far too many of them over the years, and Cody should not be one of them. C Nation Dog in the house, thank you for checking out the video. CD, hope you are doing well. NXT will be with us tomorrow. I just thought I'd ride solo for this one this evening. It's been a long time since I've done a solo Q&A, so that's pretty much the reason for it. But NXT will be in the house tomorrow, along with Kicking It with Leo. We'll be discussing Elimination Chamber and giving our predictions for the show. Signature says, my boy Seth freaking Rollins will still main event a night of WrestleMania with Cody Rhodes against Roman Reigns and The Rock. Looking likely that that could be the direction at this point. I really hope it is going to be the direction now because of the fact that they've really teased that tag team match. And WrestleMania 1 had a tag team main event. Last year had a tag team main event with a tag team championship. So it would be kind of cool to see it. I would feel sorry though for the ladies, of course, though, because of let's be fair. I'm assuming it's going to be Rhea Ripley versus Becky Lynch. That would feel like a WrestleMania match. Bayley won the Women's Royal Rumble as well. Her and Io Sky, you would imagine that should be a shout as well for Royal Rumble winner getting an opportunity. But this tag team match feels like it big time. So I can see why this would be a main event of WrestleMania if it was to go down that way. We've got Pierre saying, do you think one day Mike Bailey will go to AEW or WWE? Never say never. We got now whenever in the question before, never say never to this one for me. Speedball Mike Bailey has got all the talent in the world. I think he's, TNA's match of the year last year against Will Ospreay, incredible match, which is available for free on YouTube for people that have not seen it. I highly recommend you do go and check it out. But Mike Bailey, for me, a great talent. Would love to see him in either company should the day ever come. But I will go out if he wanted to stick my neck out and say, I will say yes. I think he's good enough to go to either, but I think he would be a mid-carder if he was to go to either company. C Nation says, out of all the times WWE call up Bron Breakker when he becomes NXT Tag Team Champion NXT, exactly. Does this mean Baron Corbin gets the call up back to the main roster? Because it's the most interesting Corbin's been for a very long time. To be fair, I'm enjoying the Wolf Dogs as a team. I imagine Bron Breakker for the time being. I think it will start the friction story with Corbin. Where is your dedication? Is it here or is it not? You've got to defend those tag team titles. I think Breakker will successfully defend those tag team titles to begin with. Stand and deliver is going to be where perhaps potentially Breakker could drop those. But if he drops those titles there, could he perhaps win a top championship the next night? But being a part of the SmackDown roster, I think it rules out the match of him and Gunther for the IC title. Bobby says would like to see Indy Hartwell or Ivy now in the women's elimination chamber. So it'd be interesting to see if either of them could win this evening. Like I say, I'll give my vote for Indy Hartwell at this moment. CD says it looks like Rich Swann will turn heel and join up with AJ Francis soon. They can go and be going for those TNA tag team titles and eventually win them. CD will not give up on the idea of Rich Swann completing the Grand Slam in TNA. Of course, it was Impact when he started. Of course, the tag team titles is what's missing. And I can see that along with AJ Francis as well, potentially could be something interesting if that does go down. Eric says, no, Indy should be the last chance with her being an Aussie. She should be in the match. Hopefully, she picks up the dub. CD says, I wish there was a last chance for the men as well. Well, all of the qualifying matches have been done for the men. So I guess it's not an opportunity. I think that's what makes me think as well, though, like why Jay Cargill could make sense to win this, why Indy can make sense to win this as well, because traditionally you would say, right, okay, the 5 people that go, they throw them in, and one of those established gets a position in the chamber. It gives an outside of the box winner an opportunity for a battle royal because no one's shoulders got to be pinned to the mat. If it's Indy Hartwell, politely, she's not been booked strongly for a very long time. So I think the last time she was booked strongly, she was NXT Women's Champion. So if she's going to win this to get into the chamber, a battle royal is the one that makes the most sense to do so, in my personal opinion. But Jade Cargill was what I can say. For the shock value, she signs with Raw, goes in this battle royal, also makes a lot of sense as well. Pierre asked, do I think Will Ospreay will become AEW World Champion one day? Absolutely. I would not be surprised if it was all in as early as this year. Now, some people might think it's crazy, but yeah, I think it could even be this year. CD says, it looks like Josh Alexander is leaving TNA. I have seen there is a timer on his tweet I'm going to call it a tweet. I don't know what people call it for X these days. So tweet it is. We don't know what that means. That could mean anything. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people are speculating he could be one of those people who could be leaving TNA wrestling. If that is the case, that is a big get for somebody else. And look, it'd be interesting to see what he would do. Could he reunite with the North, with Ethan Page and AEW? That could be an interesting way. Could be a single star there. Could go to NXT. I mean, to be fair, I think with Josh Alexander, he would have a pick of the field of where he would like to go. I think even New Japan would be an option. Bobby says, which tag team would you have liked to see a wrestler against Bron Breakker and Baron Corbin in NXT? Great question, that one. Which tag team would I like to see? Because they've destroyed quite a few tag teams and they've gone on to win those tag team titles. So try and figure at the moment of NXT's tag team division. They've already beat them, but Frazier and Axiom are a team I quite like. I think that would be a fun rematch to do. And yeah, that'll be my pick at the moment. If you have a better team, I'll come at that. Come with an answer very soon. Kingdom of Leo says Chamber is looking to be interesting. Certainly is indeed, Leo. We're looking forward to having you on the show tomorrow, discussing all of it as we do the podcast tomorrow. To speak, Carl, in the house from On the Mark Wrestling podcast. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Do you believe The Rock is potentially infiltrating the Bloodline, just eventually cost Roman the title and challenge him for head of the table, maybe SummerSlam? That's how I'm seeing it. Yeah, I mean, as I said at the start of the video, that is kind of how I'm seeing it as well. I have seen a couple of people suggesting the idea of actually the Bloodline completely turning on Roman and siding with The Rock. I think that would be a really interesting storyline angle to go with as well, especially if you're going to do head of the table, who truly is the head of the table. I still think it's going to be the break at WrestleMania. If it was my feeling, I would say not SummerSlam. I think it would be Saudi Arabia, or it could even be WrestleMania 41. If we look at the last time that The Rock got involved in a WrestleMania main event and costing someone a match, it was WrestleMania 27 back in 2011, costing John Cena against The Miz. The Miz retained the championship. The next night, it was claimed that 1 year later, we would get The Rock versus John Cena. I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happened with The Rock and Roman Reigns that was announced a year ahead of time, because it is a WrestleMania main event. It feels WrestleMania worthy. I'm actually shocked that a lot of fans didn't want to see it, but I think that can be more to the case that they want to see Cody finish the story rather than the fact that they don't want to see The Rock, because if they don't want to see The Rock, in my mind, they're bonkers. PS says the men's elimination chamber match is an all-star casting, and so is the women's. Don't you feel, Steve? Yeah, I do. I think it's a good looking chamber matches we've got this year. I'm looking forward to them. I do feel they could be predictable, though. That's the only downside to it. But I still think there's match quality. I'm quite looking forward to them. And to be fair, we could always be sprung a surprise or two. We'll definitely have a better feeling with the women's chamber match after tonight. But like I say, I think I've got a clear idea who I think is winning that one. I will save the prediction for tomorrow. But for the men's, again, I feel like it could be an obvious direction. But it's an all-star cast, like you say. And there is certainly potential of making one or two other WrestleMania matches out of this chamber match this Saturday. We've got Alyssa in the house. Thank you for joining us. Alyssa, do you agree with me? Tiffany Stratton and Chelsea Green win Money in the Bank. I guess one or the other win Money in the Bank this year, or LA Knight and Sami Zayn. Well, Alyssa, funny enough, there was a very early Money in the Bank predictions video done at the start of this year. I'm going to spoil it for you. You don't even need to see it. I'm going to give you the answer. Myself and XT were talking about it. We talked about Sami Zayn and Chelsea Green winning it. Of course, it was in Canada as well. And yeah, we went with the hometown people. Of course, that's not always the way WWE does things, but I think for Sami Zayn and the pop and the cash-in, I think we're pretty darn special, especially now Sami's looking for a redemption story to get back into that main event scene. I think that'd be pretty sweet if he can't do it in time for WrestleMania. Chelsea Green with a briefcase would just be amazing. But if it wasn't to be either of those two, Tiffany Stratton and LA Knight would be also perfect candidates. Kicking it with Leo says, yeah, Cody has to win Roman's reign. Feels more of a drag if Cody loses. Fans will be irate. Yeah, I mean, X will be a very special place to be if Cody loses 2 years in a row. But hey, that could be fans' fault if that's the case. They pushed for this match a second time. Maybe W was trying to protect from this happening twice. But hey, could be something special. We'll have to wait and see how it will go down. See, this is first solo stream in a while, which is good because while it's good to have a co-host on the stream, Steve, full focus is on the chat. Yeah, that's always the case as well. And I thought myself it's good to try and get in as many questions as possible as well, CD. So I appreciate a bit of love and support for the solo stream. I know it's a bit different if people are used to having the co-host, but yeah, I think every now and then it is good to do some solo ones as well. CD says Seth and CM Punk still going to main event, first Sunday WrestleMania main event next year. I think it will as well. I do believe that. That's the only detriment if Seth does get a main event this year, is that I think it was perfect for their main event. The fact that Seth had never been billed as a main eventer in WrestleMania history before. He'd obviously done the Money in the Bank cash-in at WrestleMania 31, but CM Punk obviously not doing either. I just think added to their story, but still, you can still make it that same way. Seth is like, I've done it, you haven't, haha. And I think it still builds the main event nicely when they want to do that, if they can do that next year. Eric Douglas says, no, Bayley Io should main event. If not, what's the point of winning the Rumble? And do you know what? I would agree with this comment. The only thing that I would say that makes me disagree with it, Eric, politely, is mainly because of the fact that so many Royal Rumble winners have not main evented WrestleMania. It's been going on now for well over a decade. And I think that's the reason why it does water down the Royal Rumble. But I do see people's argument that it makes the Rumble feel more important. You're not just winning and getting a championship match at WrestleMania, you're getting the main event spot as well. And of course, that's something I would like to see. But as I say, when it comes to that tag team match, it's hard to feel that any other match could top it. Because, like I say, when you got The Rock, you got Roman, you got Cody, you got Seth. It is main event. You can't push above that. It's very difficult to find a match that would top that. And of course, that means it does sell the Rumble, and unfortunately, it does sell Bailey as well. But Bailey, hopefully, we get a big moment on WrestleMania, a big spot as well. I'm sure that the way that show is booked can be done special to still make it her moment. Leo asked, do you think TNA gets overlooked a lot of the times? Absolutely. I was going to do absolutely again there. Yeah, definitely. If you look over the years, I mean, TNA, Impact Wrestling, whatever they record for whatever time they were doing it, they've done some great stuff here and there, obviously, and it's always overlooked because, of course, there are bigger companies out there. I think since the rebrand, I've not seen everything, hence why I was hoping to have a predictions video for No Surrender by now, but it's going to probably have to wait till Wednesday. I've just not the opportunity to catch up completely with TNA, but what I've seen so far, I think has been fantastic. I've enjoyed the first couple of weeks when I've seen Ospreay versus Alexander, seeing as well Okada being in the mix as well there, the rematch with Trinity and Jordan Grace. I know there's the ABC and with the Grizzled Young Vets as well doing their best of 3 series. So there is some really good stuff in TNA coming on right now. I think Chris Bay and Kevin Knight had an amazing X Division match as well. So there's great stuff going on there. And of course, I'm not going to forget Ash by Elegance just for you, Leo, as well there. They're building things up nicely, and I think people should be checking out if they have the opportunity to. Bobby says, how about the NXT tag team or main roster tag team beats Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin at Stand and Deliver? It could be the case, and I think it could be likely. I think that's where there could be a change of the championship for NXT at that point. Whether it's the family that win the titles back, we'll have to wait and see. But it could be another team in the mix, and I'm fascinated to see who it could be. Even someone like the Creed brothers to come down, because I can't see them getting on the WrestleMania card at this moment, so that could make an appropriate tag team match if they wanted to do so. But just to say, reiterate once again, I would not be against Braun Breaker and Baron Corbin actually being a tag team on the main roster as well, because I'm actually enjoying their act. I'd be a bit disappointed to see it break up prematurely. Leo says, what do you think is holding Ricochet back from being a world champion in WWE? Honestly, I would say probably character work. Look, high-flying stuff, he's amazing. In-ring work, he's brilliant. I loved his working outside of WWE, New Japan as well, Lucha Underground, obviously Prince Puma. The guy is an incredible talent, but unfortunately when it comes to the microphone, I don't think people buy a lot what's going on. I don't think it sells the story well enough. And I don't think he's had the opportunity to have too many goers on the mic either. I think when he does, with Logan Paul, it was fine, for example, but I think when he had was it Brock Lesnar we had a few years ago in Saudi, it wasn't enough going on there for me, and I think that's the problem for it, unfortunately. Alyssa says Cody Rhodes feels a bigger deal these years WrestleMania more than last year. Phil Roman Reigns cared more about Sami Zayn last year. Well, Roman had his focus at this point last year with Sami Zayn, certainly the Elimination Chamber. Then it all was full focus to Cody at WrestleMania. Obviously, Roman wanted The Rock this year when you go to that press conference. And of course, the reason was for box office attraction. It felt like it was more money. It felt like it was more prestige. I think that's what Roman was going for. But hey, he didn't get to make the choice in the end. Cody got to make the choice. And Cody's aiming to finish that story. And hopefully, and I say hopefully for many fans, that story does get finished, because I think it's time for a change, to quote the late Owen Hart. When Mercedes Moné makes her AEW debut, I'd like to see a feud with Britt Baker to debut, says Pierre. That would be a fantastic feud to happen. I think Britt Baker is injured at present. I haven't seen her make a return. I haven't seen Collision this past week, so unless she's returned on that show, I've not seen Britt Baker for a while. But I think that would be a great feud for Mercedes Moné. Obviously, Timeless Tony Storm would be great. Deanna Purrazzo, Jamie Hayter when she comes back, Athena. There is some great people, and Saraya would be another one as well. And I think Saraya could be that first one, especially if they want to go with the past of Saraya's neck injury that put her out, ended her career, to come back to go to AEW, and they can finish their story, and finish their feud there, perhaps maybe Double or Nothing time. I see this as hope TNA kind of stay the same. Some of the creative team is still the same. It looks like it's sort of still the same in a way. I've enjoyed the products of what I've seen, but like I said, I've not seen everything, and I'm hoping to catch up between now and certainly in the middle of the week this week, so I can get you a no surrender predictions out. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, what I've seen, I've really enjoyed. So I think the biggest disappointment for me is just seeing that Scott D'Amore is no longer there, and obviously hearing that talent's unhappy about it as well, and hearing that some certain talents may want to leave as well. That stuff's not sitting nicely with me, unfortunately. But look, that'll be someone else's gain. If Scott D'Amore ends up in a different promotion, a different company, working with their creative, that company is going to prosper. You know, AEW is crying for someone like Scott D'Amore to come in and take some of the workload off of Tony Khan. You know, if he was to go to NXT to be alongside of Jeremy Borash, Abyss, Shawn Michaels, you know, some people that he's been used to being around before, and obviously Shawn Michaels as well. I mean, NXT would just prosper even further as well. And, you know, Scott will be perfect for that role. He knows the indie scene so well as well. So for someone like Shawn and Triple H who are looking for the next bright stars of the future, Scott D'Amore knows everybody that's out there. So he would be a great signing for anyone that would come in for them. PS says Britt Baker, she reminds me one of Mercedes Money's best friends, Becky Lynch. Interesting comparison. CD says TNA has a lot of talent leaving. Well, I must admit, I'm not up to date fully with that. So let's see what happens. But he does say, not going to lie, I would like to see the North in AEW, but I feel Josh Alexander will get lost in AEW. Just look at the Hardy Boys, and they are legends. That's a good point you make there, to be with the Hardy Boys. However, though, Jeff Hardy's had these complications, hasn't he? I think that could be one of the reasons he's been held back in AEW. When you look at the likes of, say, I don't know, Darby Allin and Sting, for example. Sting's a legend, going to go out on top, it feels, with Revolution. But there is an opportunity potentially that Josh could get lost in the shuffle. Ethan Page certainly has been. It's been quite sad to see the story of Ethan Page in AEW, if I'm brutally honest, because heck of a talent. I think he would actually prosper if he was in NXT, to be fair. Yeah, if they were to reunite, that'd be awesome. To be fair, I think Josh Alexander could even continue as a single star, to be fair. And as Kicking Lewis says here, imagine Josh Alexander going to WWE, facing the likes of Gunther, Chad Gable. Those matches would be straight fire. Would love to see them. CD says, I hope they let Bron Breakker keep the NXT Tag Team titles and let Bron Breakker do his thing on SmackDown. They should do. It's happened before where we've seen talents with NXT Championships go up to the main roster, have time there, and go back and do the thing in NXT. We see Dirty Dom last year was North American champion for quite a while. Dragon Lee defended the North American title as well on SmackDown at one point as well. So I don't think it's going to be an issue with that personally. And if you want to go old school as well, Kevin Owens, of course, back in the day, debuting on the main roster as NXT champion. Speaking of NXT, I'm going to give a quick announcement of it quickly right now. Next Tuesday on the channel, it will be the next SCW Rewind. It'll be the 10-year anniversary of NXT Arrival, the first show ever on the WWE Network. So that will be the review from me and NXT next week. A decade of the WWE Network and a decade of NXT special events. Looking forward to going back and watching the first one of NXT Arrival. Of course, featuring Sami Zayn versus Cesaro. Of course, Neville versus Bo Dallas in the ladder match for the NXT Championship. And of course, we have Paige and Emma for the NXT Women's Championship. And let's go to further questions. Then in the meantime, we've got Pierre in the house now. Once again, with another question, says, do you think that being with the Street Profits and Bobby Lashley could help B-Fab's career? Because B-Fab's former faction Hit Row was a flop on the main roster. It's another absolutely from me. I think B-Fab, obviously, now she's going to be with a former world champion in Bobby Lashley and former, tag team champions of all brands. Well, I believe they call it the Grand Slam tag team champions, Street Profits. So yeah, I think B-Fab is going to have a much more prominent role in WWE moving forward. Obviously, she fits nicely into the current feud that's going on with Lashley's group against the Final Testament. Of course, Scarlett, of course, is with Karrion Kross and AOP. So it works quite nicely for the current moment. Is that going to be the WrestleMania match? Because it's not being done yet, although they are doing a match on SmackDown this upcoming week. So I have to wait and see. But the last time they booked a match for this lot, it didn't kind of go down to plan. So I'll be interested to see if this ends up finishing this week or it goes all the way to Mania. Eric says, I would love to see Chase U get a legit run with the tag titles. They could be the option that could be at Stand and Deliver. And do you know what actually we're saying about Stand and Deliver? I wouldn't be surprised if there's multiple tag teams. They usually have multiple to get people on the card. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they do with the NXT tag team titles this year. And Chase U could be an interesting one because JC Jane did put out the idea of that Chase U would be getting back in the mix for those tag team titles now that the university is back up and running. Bobby says, who in the NXT roster has potential to be NXT champion, NXT women's champion in the future? This is a fabulous question, this one, Bobby, because this is involving me having to use my brain, which normally I'm not so good at. But looking at it, I would say there's quite a few, really, when you look at it. Obviously, in the men's, obviously, Obafemi, I think, is definitely going to be NXT champion. I can see him being a long-term champion when he holds that championship. It was going to be to the point he could vacate it going to the main roster. He just, everything he does feels legit. So he's going to be my answer for the men's. For the women's, there's quite a few. Honestly, I think Kiana James, I think Fallon Henley. We can look at some of the ones that Sol Rook, I think, is a very popular choice with many people. B. Priestley hasn't done it. So there's a lot of people that I think will potentially be NXT women's champion in the future. If I'd stick my neck out on one, I tell you what, she wouldn't be NXT Women's Champion, but she will be a success in WWE, in my opinion. Ariana Grace character work is exceptional. But to answer your question, if I had to pick one, I'll go with Fallon Henley. They've broke that group up for a reason. I think she'll do something special at some point in 2024. CD says, who faces Gunther at WrestleMania? It won't be Braun Breaker since he went to SmackDown. The only way they could do it is if they do this Raw versus SmackDown stuff, which, look, to be fair, they've done it before in previous years, so it's always a possibility. But I'm struggling starting to think who Gunther faces at WrestleMania. And I feel that if it's the winner of the Chamber faces Seth Rollins, Sami Zayn is talking about getting himself back into the championship picture. At the moment, Gunther versus Sami Zayn could be what's aligning. And to be honest, if that was the WrestleMania match, I think we're in for a very good time. So I would not be against that. But Pierre, of course, suggesting a great suggestion as well. Chad Gable should have one more match with Gunther for the IC title or WrestleMania 40. Even Sheamus has been missing for a long time. That could be an interesting one if they were to do that as well. CD says Josh Alexander is leaving TNA since Scott D'Amore left, I think. We'll have to wait and see if further comes of it at the meantime. But it'll be interesting to see if it does happen. Obviously, I've seen the timer tweet. We'll see if anything more comes of it. But if he certainly does, he will be a major free agent in the market in 2024. That'd be a big story as well and be a big loss for TNA. Roger says, what did you think of TNA roster sending a letter to Anthem trying to get Scott D'Amore back in TNA? I think it shows a united roster. I think it shows that everyone's behind Scott D'Amore. Scott D'Amore was TNA wrestling. He was Impact Wrestling. He was the driving force that turned this from a company that was a laughing stock back to a company that was proud to shout the names TNA once again. For me, they've done some incredible work over the last few years. I've enjoyed the creative work, the roster, and like the family feel. You hear everyone that goes into that roster, or goes in for an appearance. Will Ospreay went into that locker room and said, what a family feel that this is. It's a proper company. Really enjoyed it. Even he showed his sentiments of when Scott D'Amore had been fired from TNA. So I feel that this was the right way to go about it, because they're saying, look, let's get him back. Obviously, Scott D'Amore, the rumors that I had heard was Scott D'Amore wanted more for TNA wrestling, and Anthem kind of wanted to not throw out more. They wanted to keep, tighten the purse strings, not push the company to its limits. I think Scott D'Amore saw that there was an opportunity to truly break out and try and make this a bigger company, and wanted to throw money at it. And I think that's pretty much where a lot of the dissension came in with it. And unfortunately, that led to Scott D'Amore's demise. But I'm on Scott's side. That's where it stands. I want Scott D'Amore back in TNA wrestling. So yeah, I think that was the right way to go back from the TNA roster. Pierre says, with Gable beating Gunther and becoming IC champion, I'm guessing that's a follow-on from earlier on there. If Gable was to get a match with Gunther at WrestleMania 40, I still think Gunther's keeping that title for a while, guys and girls. I really genuinely think that Gunther can hold that title all the way to Bash in Berlin at this point. Chelsea Green will be the first found cash in for the women. Sorry, but I can't see WWE doing it. I think that's the beauty of it, though. Chelsea's the perfect character to have a Money in the Bank briefcase. She could be someone that's, I'm going to cash in. Oh, wait, no, I'm not, because I'm not going to get the job done. And of course, she would be perfect for that person. That we've still not had someone hold that briefcase for a full calendar year, to the point that where instead of having the advantage, I can cash in when I want, the champion saying, you got to cash in. I'm ready for you because you've got like 4 weeks left. What are you going to do? I'm waiting for you. And it's kind of like Chelsea Green with that character that she's got. She'd be perfect for it. And for me, even if she got the job done last day or she failed, For me, I just think it would be a great storyline. But do I see WWE doing it? Probably not. But I just think actually it would be a lot of fun and just add some life to Money in the Bank. Some of the cash-ins or some of the holders in recent years for me, I've personally found a bit lackluster. I think Chelsea Green would add some flavour to the briefcase. CD says, imagine if a lot of stars of TNA no show, no surrender. I will laugh hard. Well, that would ruin the predictions video, wouldn't it? Let's be honest. I would like to think that the roster be more professional. If they are going to be let go from the company or get their wish to be released, then they should hold off till that point. But yeah, it would be to be fair, it would get a lull moment. It definitely would. Definitely be a talking point for one of these Q&As, that's for sure. Leo says, do you think Finn Balor should win Money in the Bank and get a legit world title run? Fantastic question, this one. Finn Balor's had the short straw over the last 8 or so years, hasn't he? Obviously, the first ever Universal Champion, got injured when he won the title. Never really been treated the same since. And I really think if Finn had had the opportunity to carry that gold, I think we would have got the Finn Balor of NXT on the main roster. I genuinely think I don't know if he would have carried it to WrestleMania, but certainly I think Royal Rumble, Elimination Chamber time, I think he would have been someone that would have been carrying that goal for a while, and I think he would have been in the conversation. I would like to see it. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we talked earlier on about Cody Now or Never, for example. Sometimes time passes too much and they have too many opportunities and they fail every time. I don't believe Finn Balor ever anymore to win a top title in WWE. Do I see him winning an IC title? Absolutely. Do I see him winning the tag titles? For sure. Put him back to NXT, he'll win the top title. Do I see him seeing the world title? I don't see it. And it's bad. I just don't see it. Obafemi will be a great NXT champion and Blair Port as great women's champion. I agree, Bobby. I think that would be a strong lineup going into the summer later this year, personally. CD says that I do not see Chad Gable beating Gunther for the IC title just because he lost to Ivor, who's a tag team wrestler. That apparently they're actually having a rematch tonight. It should be interesting, that one. But yeah, I agree with you. I didn't see that happening either. CD says, this is sad, but I can see TNA going out of business in 1 year with Scott D'Amore leaving. To be fair, I mean, it sounds the same old story with TNA, isn't it? Just when they get one step forward, they have to take 2 steps back. And it's just been the motto of TNA over the years. And unfortunately, under Impact Wrestling, they'd really built the banner up to where TNA could push forward. Anthem made a big mistake, in my opinion. But I've been quite full on that, so I won't go too much in more detail. Ray says, I feel both Rumble winners should main event WrestleMania. I think that's fair, Ray. I think it's a very fair comment, to be fair. Why not? That it's just the fact it's not happened for a decade makes it less believable. But at the same time, I don't blame you for making that comment whatsoever. CD says Baron Corbin has won Money in the Bank, King of the Ring, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, and the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Just needs the Royal Rumble. And that would get him, hopefully, if Ray's way, would be a main event at WrestleMania. But yeah, I mean, that's all that's missing. Will Baron Corbin ever do it? Probably not. How about the Good Brothers, Cole Anderson and Luke Gallows to wrestle in NXT? Bobby, that's a great shout because they ain't doing nothing. They're doing nothing on SmackDown, let's be fair. I am a bit frustrated with the OC storyline. I'm not a fan of it, if I'm honest. I'm a big AJ Styles fan, but I'm not a fan of this direction at all. It's been dragged. It's been lackluster. Just do the match if you're going to do a match, or have them reunite. Talk some sense to AJ. Something needs to go down. But in the meantime, Carl Anderson, Luke Gallows could actually be a really good shout for NXT for the time being. It's a very experienced tag team, and they could work pretty well with a lot of the young tag teams down there and give them some good experience. That would be pretty darn cool to see. CD giving some opinions here about The Rock being an idiot. Cody Rhodes is getting a rematch of Roman Reigns because he won the Royal Rumble. It's his decision. It's his decision, not The Rock's. That's The Rock doing pretty well then with his heel heat there, CD. But yeah, absolutely. Look, to be fair, the match was a suggestion that was going to go out there. As I've said all along, I still think it's a work. I know every dirt sheet and a dirt sheet and their partner has said it is change of plans, all the rest of it. Everything's worked to a T. Cody's more over. The Rock has got this going on now with the Bloodline. He's joined that. I think actually makes their storyline more interesting. For me, I think it could be something that could have ticked all the boxes all along, but that's just me. And if that's the case, then I think everyone involved deserves a big pat on the back. CD says, I think I may have to do no surrender predictions video since there's been some build up. So there's been a talking point TNA recently, so I don't blame you if you wants to do so. CD says, imagine Scott Moore joins the Don Callis family in AEW. They used to both own TNA, lol. That would be quite funny. Can you imagine? I don't think Scott Moore will be as booed as Don Callis, though. I think that's the only letdown for that. Joe in house, hope you've been doing well. Joe, thank you for joining us. I think The Rock was sharp and beat Cody up at WrestleMania. There we go. Could be the case, could be the scenario, and that could always say lead to Cody against The Rock. Cody get the win there, and it can lead then to him versus Roman later down the line, and we can build Rock versus Roman for WrestleMania 41. Would not be against it. Eric says X Division champion Ali, of course, Mustafa Ali, of course, is actually going for that championship against Chris Sabin this weekend. I'm rooting for Mustafa Ali. I'll give that one away nice and early. Roger, actually, yes, very true. Scott Moore did try to buy TNA before he was fired. I wish they'd accepted. I really do. CD says, I mean, Josh Alexander's done everything in TNA. It's good he's going somewhere else and getting fresh opponents. That's one thing I would say, actually. I would agree with you with that on Josh Alexander, because take my TNA goggles off for a minute. Josh has done everything, and they are trying to find ways to keep things interesting for him. Obviously, Simon Gotch is not the thing for me personally, but I've not seen all the build yet, so I will reserve judgment just for the moment. But Hammerstone was a fun opponent to have. That's hard to kill. But how long do you delay another Moose versus Josh Alexander match? And Josh has wrestled everyone on the roster, so it could be the right time, like you say, for him to experience something else, dip his toes in different water. And if Josh Alexander is leaving, then his last match will be against Simon Gotch at No Surrender. Imagine if Gotch beats Alexander. Well, we talked about death for TNA. That certainly would be one now in there for sure. Josh is the ace of TNA, so if he leaves, TNA will have to create a new ace. Absolutely, indeed. Eric here says, Oba Femi, I think it would look a good NXT World Champion. I think Izzy could be an amazing NXT Women's Champion. Good shouts indeed. CD goes on to say that I did predict that Oba Femi dominating NXT in 2023, and then Oba Femi went on to become the North American champion. Good prediction. He just looks like a legit guy, doesn't he? I think that's just, I looked at him and just went, this guy looks impressive, and it's good to see. I do think he'll be NXT champion by the end of 2024. I'm pretty sure of it. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if he did the Key Fleet and he held that championship at the same time. It wouldn't surprise me. CD again. CM Punk beats Drew McIntyre to win the World Heavyweight Championship at SummerSlam this year, and then Seth Rollins goes on to win the Elimination Chamber, faces CM Punk at WrestleMania 41. Love the fantasy booking. Sounds pretty good, and I think Punk versus McIntyre feels like a good feud to come back in. They've set it up, haven't they? So Drew must be staying beyond a certain point. We'll go through the last sets of questions. We'll go for about another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll look to wrap things up here today. But we've got Bobby says, which brand should Roxanne Perez get on Raw or SmackDown when she's done with NXT? A great question. Obviously, Raw has more TV time. SmackDown, though, probably has, I would say, probably has the roster where she could probably break through better at the moment. She could work with either, to be perfectly honest. I wouldn't be against either. But I suppose if you're saying TV time is on Raw, Rhea's the champion, so face and heel. Let's go Raw for the time being. I think that would make sense. Although Roxanne Perez versus Io would be a fun one as well. Could it be something like watch Bayley's back against Damage Control? So that could be fun for SmackDown as well. Bobby, I've not got a good answer. Both work for me. CD says, I know this is what you're thinking, but since wrestlers are writing letters to Anthem, I'm praying that they listen and bring Scott D'Amore back. I completely agree with you there. Tino's in the house. Hope you're doing well, Tino. Thank you for joining us. Hope you are keeping well. As well, Scott D'Amore cutting a promo saying Tino will never die. It's very different now. It certainly does indeed. PS says tonight on Raw, it's a match of two people who was at the beginning of their career jobbers, sort of came back to WWE, reinvented themselves as Drew McIntyre versus Cody Rhodes, and they used to be a tag team. Pierre, spitting facts there. The dashing ones, of course, back in the day, they were tag team champions. Glorious times indeed, back in the early 10s. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, this they could build a pay-per-view off this or PLE perfectly with Drew and Cody with their backstories of having to leave WWE and come back. But hey, we're getting the match here on Raw this evening. I think it could be a screwy finish, but I'm looking forward to the match. It feels big time. On Raw at the minute, I'm enjoying Raw weekly. It's one of the shows that I feel excites me quite a bit. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this match a lot tonight. CD says, heard a report that Tommy Dreamer was head of TNA, but that wasn't true. It wasn't true. I would have read that as well, and I took it as gospel. Shows you shouldn't believe the internet. Thank you, CD, for clarification. Bobby says, I'd like to see Roxanne Perez go to SmackDown and wrestle against Bianca Belair and Naomi. Those would be great matches, to be fair. Pierre asking, what's my opinion on Nick Gage? To be fair, I did watch the Dark Side of the Ring episode with Nick Gage. Can't say that my brain remembers it too well now that the questions come through, but did get an AEW appearance out of it, didn't he? And did use his pizza slices. It's not my style of wrestling. That's what I think I would say. I don't mind. I can watch deathmatch wrestling. I think it's probably the words I can use for it, but it's not something I would go out of my way to watch. It's not something, it's like backyard wrestling and it's not really my cup of tea. So, yeah, unfortunately, for Nick Gage, not the biggest fan, if I'm going to be honest. P actually goes and says, I don't love Nick Gage. I don't think he'll ever be in WWE one day. He's not made for the project. I'm guessing it's project. To be fair, I agree. I don't think he would ever be in the big leagues. I think this AEW was a one and done as well. CD says, sorry, Steve, but I see Kevin Owens facing Logan Paul for the US Championship at WrestleMania and AJ Styles versus LA Knight at WrestleMania. To be fair, CD, the way the current storylines in WWE are playing out, I think you're on the money. I think it could be right. The only thing I think could potentially sway that is that LA Knight and Logan Paul are both in the Elimination Chamber. And I think that is where there could be a placement of making something happen. But if it doesn't happen there, you've got it right. Those will be the two matches for Mania. Bobby says, who is the future NXT North American champion? At this moment, it's hard to tell. I don't see Obafemi losing for a very long time. Let's say Dijak for the fun of it, although his contract is running up in 2024, so he need to resign, but he would be someone that could be legit enough to do so. CD says, the last real chance I believe Finn Balor was going to win the world title was at SummerSlam 2023. Then he lost. This was the closest he was to believe winning in the world title again. Absolutely. And I agree with that as well. But I just didn't think it was going to happen, unfortunately. Let's see. CD says he wanted to see Nick Nemeth versus Josh Alexander. I wanted to see it as well. I think that would be a great match if they would ever get the opportunity to do it. Maybe in Japan one day. Nick Nemeth is doing Japan. If Alexander still did Japan after this, could be a way to see it. Would you like to see Mustafa Ali wrestle in the Best of Super Juniors at New Japan Pro Wrestling? Bobby, simple answer. Yes. Yes, I would. Would love to see it. Imagine Moose and Jordan Grace leaving TNA 2 with the good relations with Scott Moore, and TNA would be done. It would be painful for TNA if they were to lose the big names like that. They would lose a lot of viewership very quickly, and all of a sudden this rebrand and rebuild won't be as successful as they were hoping it to be. CD says, remember KO and Logan Paul also both in the image that they are indeed. So, I mean, it's all there, isn't it? All the ingredients are there. I'm excited for it, to be fair. I think Logan Paul's going to be a very interesting part of that men's chamber. I mentioned earlier on, it's an all-star cast, and I think they can, if it was me predicting, I need water at this moment. Hold on. It's firstly work on your own. But yeah, I mean, if looking at it, if I was to book it how I think it's going to go, I think Logan Paul gets the pin over Kevin Owens. Owens goes out first. LA Knight gets Logan Paul out. And I think that Logan Paul is upset about that, attacks LA Knight before leaving the chamber. That's how you build up to the WrestleMania match. If that doesn't happen, and it happens where it is Kevin Owens versus Logan Paul, LA Knight's not involved in it, then I would imagine that LA Knight would beat Logan Paul in the chamber. I think whoever pins Logan Paul in the chamber gets the US title match. That's pretty much how I see it going down. But if Paul was to pin Owens, I think that sort of pushes Owens out of the picture. But although we have seen Logan Paul now compete on a SmackDown, I would say that it's a potential we could see Owens versus Logan Paul for the United States Championship on a SmackDown episode if it's not going to be at WrestleMania. But like I say, if anyone is not in the picture, CD, you would be 100% correct. How about Josh Briggs as North American champion? I tell you, Bobby, that's a great shout indeed. Von Wagner is a big dude, but he just seems to not actually win many matches. But I'm digging his story more as well. But Josh Briggs, I'm liking the breakaway for him so far as well. Would not be against that idea, but at this particular moment, I still would back Femi. It's hard to go against Femi at this moment. And last comment, and it is indeed CD, thank you very much, says Mustafa Ali and the Grizzled One Young Vets win the titles at No Surrender. I think if they are sticking around for the long term, that would be a smart booking move from TNA Wrestling. But that's everything. That's all the comments. That's all the questions. Thank you, everyone that's been getting involved today. Appreciate you taking the time to be involved in this Q&A. And just to say as well, of course, if you missed my thoughts of The Rock joining the Bloodline, then probably go and check out the first 5 minutes of this stream. And that's the best way to find out my thoughts of everything going on with The Rock joining the Bloodline. To wait and see how things progress with the storylines. But for coming up this week on the channel, Elimination Chamber predictions will be here tomorrow, so make sure to go and check those out. They will be live. Myself, Nick Steve, and Kicking It with Leo will be in-house. That stream is also available on the channel right now. I believe it's starting at 9 p.m. UK time, which I believe will be 4 p.m. Eastern. You can set your reminders to double check and be sure that it's there now. If you've enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, share with a friend, and subscribe as well. Check out the amazing content creators on YouTube and the wrestling community in the meantime, or check out another video here on SCW. I dropped a short earlier on today on Jey Uso and Gunther competing on Monday Night Raw. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Have yourselves a great day.